Hello and welcome to The Mohit Show. In this video, I'll be covering posts from r/detrans, a well-moderated subreddit for people questioning, desisting, or detransitioning. Now on to this video's first post, titled, Transitioning Cost Me My Health. This is by a detrans female. So, a little background on me. I spent a lot of time questioning my gender after going on testosterone, and I was on T for 3.5 years. I used to be active on Twitter as a detransitioner earlier this year, but had a mental health crisis that led me transitioning again. Fast forward to April or May of this year. I went to the emergency room for something unrelated to my liver, but during the CT scan they found that my liver was enlarged, and that I have non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. They didn't tell me this when I was discharged from the hospital. I only found out about it by looking at my results online. After going to my regular doctor and getting tested for things such as diabetes, high cholesterol, etc., they didn't find anything that could realistically be caused by my NAFLD. I'm a bit on the heavier side, and I have been since I first began taking tea. So even if taking tea didn't directly cause the fatty liver, it did play a factor into it. Recently, my liver symptoms have been getting worse: overheating, itchiness, swelling in my legs, etc. I'm getting set up with health insurance still. I'll be seeing a doctor soon. I've been off tea fully for about 2 months now. I'm so upset with myself for letting it get this far. At barely a month on tea, I had started questioning my transition, and I always think to myself, that's when it should have stopped. I'm so mad at myself that it didn't. Now from the comments. A detrans individual comments, not saying that that's definitely what's happening, but the symptoms you're describing are a lot like what I experienced going off tea. There's a chance your symptoms are unrelated and just a hormonal F you're going through right now as your body adjusts. Chin up. Next post, titled, I feel like I've lost 4 years of my life. This is by a desisted female. Hi, my name is Haley. I never medically transitioned, but for 4 years I identified as a trans man. Almost everyone I know knows this. I know I never medically transitioned, and it could be so much worse, but I feel like I lost 4 years of my life. I'm only 18, so that's a good chunk. I feel so much shame anytime it's brought up, even as a joke. I hate every picture of myself from that time. A family member I was close with passed away during that time, and the last picture I have with her, I struggle to look at because I feel such shame. I can't even hang up the last picture I have with her. I'm so glad I was never allowed to medically transition, but I still feel like shit even thinking about all the time I lost. From the comments, the desisted female comments, so many kids are being indoctrinated into this shit. It's heartbreaking. I'm so sorry you had to go through all of this. And a detrans female individual comments, be thankful you never medically transitioned. I did so at 14. I'm 19 now, and I feel like my life and body are ruined. Next post, titled, Being Vocal on Social Media? This is by a detrans individual. I'm a detransitioner who was lucky enough to realize that life wasn't for me. Early enough that life wasn't for me. And now I want to help people who are confused the way I was understand that transitioning isn't for everyone. And there are other ways to find comfort with yourself. Last night on Twitter, I got hate mobbed when a gimmick account quote retweeted me, sending hundreds of comments my way filled with hate and vicious toxicity. It was overwhelming, and I completely lacked the resources to defend my views from said mob. What sites, articles, research studies, or other such material is available to help bolster my understanding of these topics to better understand myself and why I see HRT/gender affirming surgery as so harmful to minors under the age of 18? Where can I find honest, reliable reporting of statistics around these topics? Now, from the comments, a verified professional comments, there's good information at this link and also at that link. I'm in SEGM. We have links to medical papers here, and on that link. All of these links will be in the description. Most of all, remember the best response to an online mobbing is to get offline. You don't have to convince the haters of anything. I'll reiterate, those links mentioned are actually really good and very useful, so please look at them in the description. Desisted female comments. Jessie Single has a few excellent articles like this one and this one that thoroughly go through the flaws in popular pro-trans science journalism. He's also one of the few lefties who reports on this stuff with consistent nuance and without drifting rightwards. A detrans male individual comments, I'm pretty new at this whole detransitioning thing myself, and I felt the same way as you. I kind of realized yesterday that I don't have to care about these people. I spent 6 years of my life enmeshed in trans politics, and I think I just need a break. The trans community can be vile. I know if I come out publicly with the opinions I share on here, my career would be at risk. It wouldn't take much to label me as a transphobe in their eyes. Do I really want to risk parts of my life to help people who insist I'm a monster? People who insist on buying into a harmful ideology of changing your body to be happy? Their reaction to your Twitter post doesn't surprise me in the slightest. I'm not sure if I could constantly take something like that. I don't think you're going to find a lot of good resources. The establishment is firmly in the trans camp now, and any dissent is shut down immediately. I almost feel like the biggest fuck you that we can give to the trans community is just living our best lives post detransition. Let them sink deeper into that tar pit. We'll be up here at the top willing to chat if they want. I think in a few years I might feel like being a bit more vocal, but for now I just want to focus on finding happiness as a man. Sorry for the unrelated rant, just something I've been thinking about lately. Now, a verified counselor comments, although I would agree that the Twitterverse can be brutal and sometimes it's best just to take yourself out of the line of fire, if you want to jump in, you can probably find some reliable information to reference in the official WPATH Standards of Care document, which you can find online here. Link in the description. See pages 10 and 11, where they outline standards of care for children and adolescents and specifically cite research that says most young kids with dysphoria will desist if there's no medical intervention. They do say that adolescents who are given puberty blockers are more likely to continue with the gender transition and/or reassignment surgery, although it's a concern for me that there's no control group cited to show how many adolescents would desist if they did not receive hormone blockers. To be clear, I don't agree with everything WPATH says, but they're a recognized authority in transgender care, so it might help you to be aware of the actual guidelines versus what Twitter Care says, often based on pure emotion without any real medical backing. Here's also another medical reference site that takes a moderate, i.e., more conservative, view on transgender care. That's the same SCGM link. Specifically, check out the articles on the closing of the Tavistock Centre in England, and that link will also be in the description. Now the verified counselor replies to her own comment. See also on page 19 of the WPATH document, where it specifies the criteria to start adolescent puberty blockers. I wonder how many detrans/desisters here actually met these criteria before proceeding. Now here, criteria for puberty suppressing hormones. In order for adolescents to receive puberty suppressing hormones, the following minimum criteria must be met. The adolescent has demonstrated a long-lasting and intense pattern of gender nonconformity or gender dysphoria, whether suppressed or expressed. 2. Gender dysphoria emerged or worsened with the onset of puberty. 3. Any coexisting psychological, medical, or social problems that could interfere with treatment, example that may comprise treatment adherence, have been addressed, such that the adolescent situation and functioning are stable enough to start treatment. 4. The adolescent has given informed consent, and particularly when the adolescent has not reached the age of medical consent, the parents or other caretakers or guardians have consented to the treatment and are involved in supporting the adolescent through the treatment process. Link in the description. Now, I'd like to add here that many of the stories here, in fact, most of them, don't actually meet these criteria, especially three with coexisting psychological, medical, or social problems. Now, on to the next post, titled Tired of Screwing with My Sexual Health. This is by a detrans female. Make it short, I'm female to male to female to male to whatever the F, just not on testosterone. Started November 2nd, 2018, the first time. Quit December 2021. Started again June 2022. My last shot was Monday. I don't want to do this anymore. I miss having sex. I miss sex being fun. Without the gut wrenching anxiety of getting pregnant and without males trying to convince me not to use protection. But that literally isn't my fault. I quit drugs recently. Weed and nicotine. I look like a cis man. I sound like a cis man. Never got top surgery, and I still get my periods. My body and face are very masculine, though. It took 6 months for all the hair to go away, but I'm scared it will take longer this time around. 6 months feels like forever when it comes to hormones and seeing physical changes. I just miss not being on this shit. I do have a tube of vaginal estrogen, though. Would it still be of use? My biggest regret isn't even the hormones. I wore a binder 24/7 all through my teen years, 12 to 17/18, I'd say. It was the right size, but still, I definitely effed up the growth of my tits. I just want to be in good physical health. Gender is just a LARP. It's just LARPing, lol. At this point, I see me in a female body as a light-hearted joke from the universe that I must accept, no matter how disconnected I feel from it. I'm not telling anyone I'm going off hormones, I'm just doing it. Tired of the fight. I'm going to miss getting erect, though, lol. Is there any way I could still get erect even off tea? I occasionally would last time I went off of it, but it accompanied this weird painful feeling, like I was forcing blood vessels to open that would normally be dormant. I kind of like what tea has done for me, but the issues I'm having with vaginal atrophy are too much. As much as I don't want to identify with having a vagina, that's what Mother Nature decided for me, I guess. I have autism and body dysmorphia as well. How can I focus on being kind to myself while I'm in this in between stage of going off tea? I also stupidly cut off like 7 inches of hair I had growing from the first time I detransed. My head shaved on the sides and back. From the comments, the original posts are also comments. Also, would it be a good idea to kind of postpone quitting weed and nicotine until my hormones balance out again? Weed helped me get off tea the first time around a lot. And the detrans male commenting on my last shot was Monday, I don't want to do this anymore, saying, good for you. Who encouraged or began giving you the shots to begin with? And the original poster comments to that. My silly ass little self, lol. Next post, titled Detrans Legitimacy Rant. This is by a detrans male. One of the most frustrating things I've found about being a detrans person is how nobody believes we're real, or that we were never trans and never went through gender dysphoria in the first place. I've gotten a common number of reactions. Transgender. You're in denial. A lot of your dysphoria. You're in denial a lot of your dysphoria, and you'll retransition someday or live a life of misery. Transsexuals. You were never trans and confused other mental illnesses as gender dysphoria. You never had gender dysphoria, and it's your fault for seeking transition-related treatment. And gender trans people / cis allies, you're not real. You must be a secret transphobe trying to spread fear amongst trans people to make them doubt their transition. It's so annoying that after 6 years of transition where I was wholeheartedly believed at every point when I claimed to be trans online, now everyone thinks I'm a liar. There really is next to no support for us. Our stories are ignored and blamed on us instead of the trans community that pushes transition as the only cure for gender dysphoria. It doesn't matter that gender dysphoria almost drove me to kill myself multiple times. I must have never been a real trans person in their eyes. Honestly, from all the pushback I've gotten, it's only going to make me a louder advocate for us. I was on the fence about being open about my detrans story because I wanted to move on with my life. Now I feel stronger than before. I want to push back against this cult-like behavior from the trans community and its allies. From the comments, a detrans female comments, It always goes like this. Oh, you detransition? You must only have been transitioning for a few weeks. A few years? Well, you probably only transitioned socially. You had hormone slash surgery? You must not have had gender dysphoria then if you detransition. You have diagnosed gender dysphoria? Then you're repressing and have internalized transphobia. And replying to that, the original poster says, trans people are masters of logicking themselves into any belief they want. I mean, just look at trans women in women's sports issues. How is it even an argument at this point? The answer is so obvious. A detrans female person comments on the original post. I'm actually closer to the second response. My body sensation flashbacks from CPTSD were actually confused for gender dysphoria, and I developed a male alternate personality to repress certain memories. But it's not my fault for getting confused. It's still on the providers for not screening more carefully slash enacting more gatekeeping. We actually do need awareness of this because trans activists that are screaming for instant free HRT for all and that dysphoria can somehow coexist separately from their autism and history of assault are really hurting people like me. And the original post replies to that, totally agree. I'm pretty positive at this point I have CPTSD from my childhood bullying and my mom's emotional abuse. Becoming a woman was very much a way to escape my life. That feeling manifested as gender dysphoria, just like trauma can manifest as all sorts of mental illnesses. I don't get why it's so hard for them to grasp that this is a possibility. Now, D-trans female comments on the original post. It's frustrating because I 100% felt like I was a man during that time. I wanted to be super masculine and I did everything I could to come off that way. I let my chin hair grow out, got shoe soles to make me taller, had an all male wardrobe, even clothes I didn't like as long as they were masculine. I had an emo style, but I would dress normal, even though I didn't like it, to appear more like a guy. I wouldn't get certain piercings I deemed feminine. I wouldn't dye my hair unnatural colors, even though I loved to do so. I actually dyed my hair brown at one point, even though I hate having brown hair. I had glasses from the men's department. I even took a graphic arts class so I could learn to edit how my chest would look without boobs, and so on. Why would I go through all of this if I wasn't having gender dysphoria at the time? Just because I don't have it now doesn't mean I didn't have it before. I very clearly did. And the original poster replied to that. I'm 100% the same as you, but in the other direction. Why would I do all this stuff, pay all the social costs, get all the weird looks and questions, pay thousands of dollars to transition without having gender dysphoria? I think a lot of their responses come from fear. I don't think any reasonable person would have to be trans, but most feel they don't have a choice. If it turns out they could have done things differently, that's going to fuck with their head in a lot. It's clear by how strongly they react to me or other detransitioners that there's more going on inside them. Now a detrans individual comments on the original post. Heavy agree. Though for me personally, it definitely was other underlying conditions and societal expectations of my biological sex. Both can exist simultaneously, and it's not fair that they try to paint us with one single truth when there are many. Some people may still have gender dysphoria but simply decided surgery or hormones were too risky or not financially feasible anymore, or they had health complications. Some of us may be fine with our birth sex once again, while others have different reasons. It's very different for the most part. Obviously, not all, but I've noticed a lot of female D-trans do it out of hatred of womanhood, not feeling like other girls, or like they fit in, or that maybe they aren't femme or pretty enough slash body dysmorphia. Big one for me, I truly wanted to chop my chest off. I truly wanted to kill myself over it. And being sexualized or assaulted from a young age, and D-trans males tend to struggle with their sexuality or decide the transition process is hurting them more even if they want to do it. Obviously, these are all interchangeable. But I'm saying it because I agree that you can't lump all D-trans into a single category or any group of people for that matter. We aren't liars. We live the real experience. The original poster replies to that. I can completely understand that. I found suddenly being sexualized by creepy men jarring when I hit a point of blending as a woman in my transition. I once went out with bra inserts to see how I felt about having larger breasts, And I was considering breast augmentation at the time, and the leers I got made me so uncomfortable. I could never imagine going through that as a teenager. There are so many reasons to transition and detransition. The trans community only wants one narrative out there for obvious reasons. And a detrans individual replies to that, it's a horrifying reality. It must be quite the shock making that transition. I'd say it starts even younger than teenage years. For me, I remember grown men making comments around 9 to 10 years old. I'm so used to it that it's just another Tuesday, but when it happens for the first time, it makes you fear for your safety. Manhood seemed like an easy escape, to become invisible. When I passed for a young boy, I was treated so much nicer at work, like nobody stood there trying to make me look stupid or creep on me. Yet I became utterly invisible at the same time. It was insane just being able to just exist freely, albeit a lonely existence. Very tantalizing for a young girl. But yeah, that's just one of many reasons. The human experience can't be boxed into any one category no matter the topic. The LGBT community of all communities should know better than to shove people into these binary existences, since their whole mantra is quite literally the opposite. Hypocrites. Our desisted person comments, this is really telling. Link in the description. Behind closed doors, they know perfectly well and just shrug it. Trans medicine brings in $200 billion, so they sweep it under the rug. In the video, they're even bragging how top surgery alone brings $40,000 each. So gross and unjust. And the desisted person comments, no, you're right, they think it's a conspiracy. I saw in a group on Facebook, they were talking about this Reddit. Like it was a bunch of conservative men trying to lie to the world. Like it was some sort of a Republican propaganda. And I said, you know that Reddit has nothing to do with politics. And I got yelled at and kicked out for being a troll. And the original post replies to that, if I'm secretly a turf or conservative man, I have way too much time on my hands, ha ha ha. I'm so glad we have a space like this where we can share stories and support each other. Next post, titled, Folks. This is by a detrans female. I started tea using Folks. I had no informed consent clinics in my area, but I had seen ads for Folks online, so I looked into them. I used them for 6 months. That means I spent $840 on them in total. Keep in mind, I'm a broke college student, and that is an absolutely astronomical amount of money for me. They were always very responsive and attentive whenever I had questions. My provider seemed very nice. Obviously, they're very affirming, and as someone who lives in a very conservative area, that felt really awesome, having a doctor that didn't make me feel defensive because of my sexuality or identity. But then I realized it wouldn't be smart to continue testosterone anymore. They were always so attentive and nice before, and when I sent them a message explaining that I need to stop HRT, I had just assumed that my doctor would help me navigate that a little. I understand telehealth is inherently more hands-off, but when I had asked questions before, I always got a, we can schedule a meeting to go over this, or do you have any questions? Nope. I got a reply telling me to email their customer service to help me cancel my subscription, and a, I'll tell provider what you said. That feels so slimy to me. One of their patients tells them they're detransitioning, and the only response is, here's how to unsubscribe, after months of care. No office to schedule a meeting, no links to any resources, no effing medical advice about stopping HRT. So now I'm going through the worst hormonal fluctuations of my life, wondering if I did this safely, and the doctor that prescribed them didn't even respond. I don't even know what to think, or say, or do. Now from the comments, a detrans male individual comments, what people don't know about trans doctors and clinics, but should know, is that it's literally only for transitioning people. You exist to them while you transition. If you stop, they basically don't want anything to do with you anymore, because they exist to do one thing, and that thing is to provide transition services and medicine. If you don't need that, they basically expect you to go somewhere else that handles whatever your new concern is. It's funny because from a medical perspective, it actually makes some sense in a cold kind of way. If you had urinary issues and you saw a urologist and then later contacted the urologist and said, I don't need my bladder medication anymore, I'm done with this treatment, what do I do now? They'd probably just say about the same thing. They'd say something like, good luck, and send you on your way. They can't really do much for you anymore if you're so much better that you're done with being treated. You have to keep in mind that for them, this is a medical treatment for a medical problem. When you quit the treatment, they figure the problem is gone because obviously you wouldn't quit if you still had a medical issue. They also see all this as totally safe medicine that aims to cause cosmetic changes. It's harmless from their standpoint, and they got you safely through it until you were done. So if something goes wrong for you after you finish with them, it's not their responsibility to handle it anymore. It becomes the responsibility of either an ER if it's serious, or another doctor if it's not immediately life-threatening. They did their job and you're not dead. So that's basically a successful treatment from their perspective. Any later health issues are more or less an unrelated issue even if they're a direct result of the treatment. It's similar to health issues arising after a surgery. If you have a hip replaced and later your leg goes numb, you're generally supposed to follow up with your primary care doctor who refers you to someone new most of the time. The surgeon basically did the one thing they're specialized in and know how to do, which is surgery, and you didn't die. So it's all done on their end, and your new numbness issue is someone else's responsibility, maybe a neurologist or a physical therapist. It would be someone who specializes in this new numbness issue. It seems really shitty because it is shitty, but that's how the medical system works. It's not like Star Trek or medical dramas. It's a big factory that turns out results based on a checklist and a time clock. It's just about efficiency and separating labor. This is why so many detrans people feel lost when they try to detransition. The people who used to take care of them pretty much abandoned them, and now they don't even know what the plan is. They may have medical issues, but now they have to start all over again with the medical system because they're essentially having all new issues from a medical standpoint. It makes us feel like our histories are ignored, because frankly, they always were. That's why it's so easy to transition now. It's been deregulated from a mental health standpoint, which means it's being handled like a physical issue, and no one really keeps track of physical issues beyond current symptoms and how life-threatening they are. How you feel about all of it makes no difference. Anyway, I hope you get taken seriously by someone. You deserve better than what you're getting. And detrans female comments on the original post. Sorry about what happened. Going off tea cold turkey is usually safe. After only 6 months, you should have no trouble. I went off after 18 months and had about 3 months of feeling crappy until my period came back. Now on to the next post, titled, I'm sick of gender culture. This is by a detrans individual. I'm sick of transitioning being pushed online where most teens are now. I'm sick of transitioning being portrayed as cool, liberal, and woke. I'm sick of the way I was sucked into it in a time where it wasn't as big as it is now. It's growing, and growing very fast. I'm sick of the idea of gender, how they say, well, gender is in your brain, but then push transition. Trans rights are humans' rights, it's true. But the way schools and kids these days transitioning because of body dissatisfaction and bullying, all those white girls becoming boys to solve their issues, boys wanting to be ooh anime girls because they can't fit in. Just sick of it. From the comments, a detrans female individual comments, me too, it feels dehumanizing. I long for the day it will calm down. I just feel so sad for the kids. What a messed up world. And the deceased individual comments, God, I absolutely hate it when people say, wow, that's so gender. Oh my God, I want your gender. When they really just mean aesthetic. Like, you can just say aesthetic instead of pretending that every non-conventional look means another gender. And the original poster replies to that, that's really regressive and stereotypical, not at all progressive. Now, the assisted female individual comments on the original post, girls want to be ooh anime boys dressed as anime girls is hilarious doublethink in my opinion. And a detrans female comments on that, you should see r/MTF Butch, LMAO. And a desisted female comments on the original post, same, I literally don't want to hear about gender and transness ever again, but it's everywhere, so I'm here for some sanity. Now on to the next post, titled, I went out presenting as a woman again. This is by a detrans male. Last night I went presenting as a woman. I hadn't been presenting as a woman for a few weeks now, but I had signed up to volunteer at a women's only event over a month ago and decided to still go as I didn't want to leave them without help. I can't believe how this whole thing made me feel. Dressing up as a woman before I went felt so fake to me. I had spent years trying to see a woman in the mirror, and eventually I did. Now I just see a man in women's clothing. It's such a weird shift to go through because I haven't been off HRT long enough to have any changes to my face. It really showed me how I bought into this idea that I was a woman, but I never actually was. I was always male sexed, no matter how well I did my makeup or picked my outfit. I almost had a panic attack on my way to the event because I felt so strange. When I finally got there, I felt like an interloper, that I didn't belong here. I used to go to women's only events and felt it was a place for me, but now it felt like I was just tricking all of them. No, I was tricking all of them since I am a man. Using my feminine voice felt so fake after using my true male voice for the last few weeks. I missed just being able to speak. I missed not overthinking every action and not worrying about passing. Overall, I hated it. I never wanted to go back to being a trans woman again. What an awful existence that was. I've finally been liberated. I had this fear for the last week or so that going to this event would shift my perspective back to wanting to be a woman. Instead, it only solidified my choice. I'm not a woman. I'm a man. And I'm so effing happy about it. I never want to wear that costume again. It's just hiding the real me. The me I love. Now, from the comments, a desisted female individual comments, "Thank you for sharing the story. I dated a trans male to female individual once, and they were much like this. They were worried all the time about making each and every action feminine. The feminine voice 24/7 and the perfect clothes and makeup. It was just way too much for me to handle being around. He was always crying too about feeling fake. I tried to talk to him and bring him back to reality and get help for his condition. I really wanted him to love himself and be happy and healthy. Those hormones he was taking were doing awful things to him as well. It makes me so happy to hear that you're accepting yourself finally and not falling into the delusion anymore. I found this so sad and tragic when you mentioned about how hard you tried to see a woman in the mirror for years. I'm so glad you have found yourself. You sound like you're on the path to healing. Sends hugs." And the original post replies to that, "Thank you so much. Yes, the male to female experience can be draining. Sadly, I don't think the transgender spell can be broken by an outsider. It has to come from within. Once you're lost in the sauce, it's almost impossible to get out." Now, a desisted female comments on the original post. "It is my opinion that sometimes transition is too stressful and potentially traumatic to be worth it in many cases. Transition requires extremely heavy masking, either physically, mentally, or both, unless someone essentially wins the genetic lottery and passes very easily, very quickly. I also do not believe this will change when trans people are fully accepted. I think it's an inevitable consequence of how humans sex/gender each other unconsciously. Those who transition will always be striving to pass and mimic either internally or externally. For some, transition is a good option, of course. Some people wish to transition because they have been taught, since early childhood, that they must have a certain sex to enjoy something that is frankly utterly irrelevant to one's genitals. By stifling self-expression in sexist ways, we're teaching people that they are out of place and teaching self-hatred, which I believe can conclude with this desire to change sex." Now, the original poster comments agree with all of this. For me, I don't even think I was consciously suppressing myself due to sexist stereotypes, but after a lifetime of bullying for being any deviation from the masculine norm, I had unfortunately internalized an inability to be my true self. Now, a detrans female individual comments on the original post. "Waking up from the delusion is such a shock. Thanks for sharing your perspective. I recently watched an old video from when I was presenting as a man. It's ridiculous. I just look like a girl with a deep voice. Who was I fooling?" And another detrans female comments, "It feels really good to not live in a constant state of self-observation and self-correcting our voices and mannerisms. Welcome back to yourself. You can walk and move just naturally how you do. Talk as your voice naturally comes out of your body, and guess what? You are you, and you have always been you. This time, But now the pressure's on. You can just exist and not have to try so hard every moment. It's exciting, happy for you. And the original post replies to that. Self observation is a great way to put it. I can finally just be me without second guessing every little thing I do. I love it. Now on to the next post, titled For Anyone Questioning. This is by a desisted female. So I wanted to see what this was all about. I was trans from the age of 13 to 17. I'm now 20, and looking back, there were so many telltale signs I wish I'd known. I wanted to post something on here to try and see if my experiences could help anyone else out, or make anyone else feel heard in any way. I was 13 when I decided to transition, though never medically. I was socially and emotionally fully female to male. I used to be really upset with my parents for not allowing me testosterone as a kid. But looking back, I am so grateful. There's no way I would have been ready to make that drastic of a medical decision at 13 to 14. Which is why I think that it's almost an effing crime that people are allowing that nowadays. No child can consent to that. They're not developed enough to know the consequences. Anyways, I will say this. Gender affirming therapists are not therapists to help you unload. They're therapists to affirm conclusions you've already made and reinforce those ideas. If you're truly struggling and want a full rundown, which I believe everyone should do, please seek a regular psychiatrist. This simple switch changed my life. Come to find out, I was just autistic. After that realization hit, everything made sense. Everything changed. I can't stress this enough. I had underlying health issues. And the gender concept was my way of dealing with it, or finding community. If you have doubts, or even if you don't, please always outweigh every option. Seek genuine help and really dig deep to find those answers. You can find them on your own, but trust your gut. If something feels wrong, it's wrong. And there's no shame in making mistakes along the way. I also suggest getting blood work. Low levels of hormones in your body can drastically affect your mood and how you feel. Hormone balance is so important, especially for your internal process of how you express yourself. Anyway, I'm here if anyone needs to talk. Best of luck and all love to you. I promise it's scarier to live with regret than it is to push through to the other side. It'll be okay. Now on to this last post, titled The Medical Field and Big Pharma. This is by a detrans female. Think about how much money Big Pharma makes off people like us. This is why our therapists did not ask questions. This is why our doctors jumped to offer us HRT and surgeries. HRT. Who knows how much this adds up to over a lifetime? Top surgery, 5,000 to 11,000. Phalloplasty, 20,000 to 50,000. Metoidioplasty, 6,000 to 30,000. Vaginoplasty, 10,000 to 30,000. Face feminization, 20,000 to 50,000. Vocal feminization, 8,000 to 15,000. Tracheal shave, 3,000 to 6,000. And a hysterectomy is 5,000 to 25,000. And more. Think about how much they can make off of a single transitioning person. That's why they want to push the narrative. They don't want us asking questions, doing real research, etc. They just want their payout. They don't care about us or how it might make us feel in the future. Not to mention how a lot of this is experimental still, but they don't disclose that. Testosterone is a steroid and it's causing numerous health issues amongst female people. And yes, transitioning might actually help some people, but personally I believe that it's harming more than it's helping, especially young people. Being transgender 10 years ago was rare. So why did I know 15 female to male people and 3 male to female people in high school? I just graduated in 2020. This isn't normal, and to say that it is ignorant. I believe they're fully aware that many of us who transition at a younger age are neurodivergent, going through or processing trauma, suffering from body dysmorphia, suffering from BPD, etc. But they can't make money that way. And from the comments, the cis female comments, exactly, couldn't have said it better. I believe this is the collective reasons put simply, but it's so much more serious than what people treat it to be. Because people put their trust in medical professionals so much, it's almost impossible to counteract unless the medical community within starts outnumbering this ridiculousness and protesting. I, a student in the medical field, I am a student in the medical field. It is easier said than done to protest, though. Losing a job, social shunning, losing a license, etc. I would love to protest, but as someone who was dragged into this cult myself, I know how vicious they can be. I'm sure everyone does at this point. Now, someone who's questioning their own gender transition comments. There was a wonderful video resurfaced online where the head of a hospital was talking about the money side of transitioning. They clearly stated that a phalloplastic can pay up to 1/4 of hospital bills. No doctor would refuse transitioning patients if they wanted, and the trans people in the hospital were supposed to be carried by allied tutors, basically people that could keep the medical staff in check in case they wanted to warn the people. I saw it on a right wing podcast, link in the description. So the original poster replies to that. I recommend everyone here to watch that video. Now, someone who's questioning their own gender transition comments. What's more profitable than offering something that requires significant follow up, and its effectiveness is impossible to measure? Anyways, that is the end. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe if you want to support the channel. And make sure you have a good day.